2 hours ago, the FAA, acting on a direct White House executive order, banned all Canadian-registered aircraft from entering United States airspace. Commercial flights, cargo planes, private jets, even medical evacuation helicopters near the border, all grounded. The order took effect at 4 a.m. Eastern with zero advance warning. Air Canada, WestJet and Porter Airlines learned about it from news alerts on their phones. No diplomatic communication whatsoever. The justification? The White House claims Canada failed to meet new aviation security benchmarks quietly introduced 72 hours ago. Biometric scanning at every gate, real-time AI threat assessment, cargo manifests submitted 12 hours before departure. These standards are impossible because the technology does not fully exist yet. Even American airlines cannot comply. This is not security, this is punishment. Last week, Mark Carney refused to renegotiate mineral export agreements, giving the United States cheap access to lithium, cobalt, and nickel. These critical rare earth elements power every EV battery, military guidance system, and smartphone. Carney told Washington that access would be priced at fair market value. Trump wanted those minerals cheap. Carney said no. Now Canadian planes cannot fly over American soil. But before I tell you what Carney did in response, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss a single development in this crisis. Here is what most people miss. Canada's geography makes American airspace nearly unavoidable for east-west travel. Toronto to Vancouver without crossing US airspace adds hours and, honestly, tens of thousands in fuel costs. The White House thought this would cripple Canadian aviation within days and force Carney to surrender, but, that is not what happened. Exactly 55 minutes after the ban, Carney appeared at the Canadian Space Agency headquarters in Quebec, not Parliament, the Space Agency, and, well, the reason became clear immediately. He said, "The United States has closed its skies to Canada. Rights come with consequences. Those consequences will be felt in every American airport, military operation, and satellite network within 48 hours. Then he laid out 5 countermeasures that, honestly, made the airspace ban look like a tantrum. First, Canada immediately closed its airspace to all American military aircraft. Now dozens of US military flights cross Canadian territory every day for Arctic operations, NATO exercises, and, strategic bomber patrols. Without Canadian airspace, the Air Force, loses its most efficient continental defense routes. Carney was specific, day for day, hour for hour. The closure matches the American ban. Second, Canada suspended all joint Arctic surveillance operations. That means radar stations, underwater sensors, and satellite ground stations on Canadian soil went completely dark for American access. A Pentagon spokesperson admitted, honestly, filling this gap would take 18 months and cost over $6 billion. Third, Carney announced an energy rate reclassification for American tech companies operating Canadian data centers. Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta have built massive facilities in Canada, mostly for that cheap hydroelectric power. But now their subsidized rates would become premium commercial rates within 30 days. The estimated cost increase $4 billion annually. One analyst told CNBC this changes the entire calculus of North American data infrastructure. Fourth, Canada invoked the Chicago Convention on International Civil Aviation, filing a formal complaint with the International Civil Aviation Organization, headquartered in Montreal on Canadian soil. Legal experts confirmed the American ban likely violates multiple bilateral and multilateral aviation agreements. Fifth, and most devastating, Canada opened its airspace to expanded international carriers. Emirates, Qatar Airways, Singapore Airlines, and Lufthansa were offered immediate slots at Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal airports. If these routes establish, American airports lose billions in transit revenue permanently. Carney said simply, if the United States does not want Canadian planes in its skies, the world's airlines are welcome in ours. The market response was brutal. Delta, United, and American Airlines dropped 6 to 9%. Boeing fell 5% on fears of losing Canadian defense contracts. The Nasdaq dropped over 400 points as data center costs sank in. The Pentagon was furious. A senior official told the Associated Press they actually learned about the ban from cable news, which is honestly quite surprising. The Joint Chiefs requested an emergency presidential meeting within 90 minutes. NORAD issued a rare public statement assessing operational impact. Congress erupted. One Republican senator said, "We handed our adversaries a gift. Russia and China are watching us blind ourselves in the Arctic over mining contracts." Internationally, the European Union called the ban disproportionate. The United Kingdom confirmed British Airways would increase Canadian service. Japan and South Korea expressed interest in new Canadian routes. NATO's Secretary-General warned against actions compromising Allied Arctic defense. Here is the strategic brilliance. Every Carney countermeasure is framed as reciprocal and proportional. You closed your skies to our commercial planes, we closed ours to your military. You imposed impossible standards, we imposed premium pricing. Nothing can be characterized as escalation. Trump now faces a lose-lose dilemma. Maintain the ban, and military operations degrade, while Canadian airports gain permanent international traffic. Lift the ban, and he looks like he capitulated publicly. Escalate further, and Canada accelerates diversification away from American dependence. Or negotiate. But Carney's conditions are public. Full rescission of the ban, formal commitment to the Chicago Convention, a 10-year cooperation framework preventing future unilateral closures. 2 hours ago, the White House thought it was grounding Canada. Instead, American defense, aviation, and tech companies are grounded. Carney did not just respond to the ban. He used it as a trigger for restructuring Canada's strategic relationships. Every countermeasure makes Canada less dependent on the United States tomorrow. This is not about one confrontation. This is about ensuring America can never use this leverage again. Carney is not playing for today. He is playing for the next 50 years, and Washington does not have an answer. Smash that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because the next 48 hours could change North American relations for a generation.